Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story about deep, deep heritage, about a royal family and a hometown that, because of history, is now completely unreachable. It's a story about roots so strong they survive even when the land itself is gone.
All right, so just a heads up, this is a follow-up to our previous piece on the clan villages of Kwangdeok-myeon. We really do recommend watching that one first to get the full picture. But if you're ready to jump right into the story of one of Korea's most important families, then you are in the right place.
So, imagine a place you can't go back to. We're talking about Kwangdeok-myeon, which is now in North Korea. For centuries, this area was home to so many prominent families: the Andong-kwan clan, different Kim clans, the Jeonju clan, and several branches of the Lee clan. Today, though, we're zeroing in on one incredible thread in that tapestry: the Jeonju Lee family. Let's get into it.
We're going to focus on probably the most famous family to ever settle in this now inaccessible place: the royal family of Korea, the Jeonju Lee clan. We're going to look at how and why parts of this legendary family put down roots here, and what that history really means today.
Okay, so to really get their story in Kwangdeok-myeon, you have to understand who the Jeonju Lee clan are. I mean, we're not talking about just any family. These are the people who literally built a dynasty that steered the course of Korean history for over 500 years.
And that brings us to a really important concept: Bongwon. Now, a Bongwon isn't just a hometown. It's the very soul of a Korean clan's identity. It's their origin point. For the Lee family, that place is Jeonju. And the story of how it became their Bongwon, well, that's the story of their incredible rise to power.
And check this out. This timeline shows their amazing journey. It all starts way back in the Silla dynasty, with their ancestor Han Lee, who was a big-shot minister. Fast forward a few centuries to the Goryeo dynasty, and you have his descendant, Mokjo Lee, who becomes this powerful figure in Jeonju, basically locking it in as their ancestral home. And then, bam, in 1392, his direct descendant, the legendary general Songae Lee, founds the Joseon dynasty.
Think about that. Just let that number sink in. 590 years. This one family produced 27 kings and ruled the Joseon dynasty for over 5 centuries. That is the massive, incredible legacy that we're talking about here.
So you have this huge royal family, and naturally it branches off. The sons of kings become princes, and they start their own family lines. We're going to look at how 4 of these very different branches, each with its own incredible story, all ended up putting down roots in this one small area, Kwangdeok-myeon. Our first story starts with Prince Sokbo. He was the 9th son of King Jeonju, the 2nd king of Joseon, and he was a character. He was known for being super quiet and living simply, so much so that he got this nickname, Gyeonmukdong, which means frugal and silent hall. He basically decided to live a quiet life up in the mountains, far away from all the royal court drama.
And it was really in that same spirit that his descendants settled down. You can see here that starting with his 3rd-generation descendant, Chaelok Lee, the family made its home near Biwal Mountain in Kwangdeok-myeon. They just carried on that legacy of their quiet ancestor for generations and generations.
Next up, we've got Prince Jeong-suk, who was the 14th son of the same king, King Jeonju. Now, he was the total opposite of his quiet brother. Prince Jeong-suk had a really important public job as a top official in charge of the royal family's ancestral rights. I mean, that's a position with a ton of honor and responsibility. So his family's connection to Kwangdeok-myeon started a bit later, with his 8th-generation descendant, Sehyeob Lee, moving the family there. And for many generations after, his family kept up that tradition of public service, holding some really key government jobs, like royal secretary and even vice minister.
All right, now for a major player in Korean history, Grand Prince Hyeoryong. He was the 2nd son of King Taejong, and, this is the important part, the older brother of King Sejong the Great, one of Korea's most famous and beloved kings. He actually played a huge part in helping his little brother take the throne, choosing what was best for the kingdom over his own ambition.
So while the main part of his family stayed in the capital, Seoul, a really important branch was started in Kwangdeok-myeon. You see, one of his 5th-generation descendants, a man named Bi-hyun Lee, moved out to Maege-dong and established the family's presence and their ancestral graves right there where they remained for centuries.
And last but not least, we have Prince Gunryong. This guy was the great-grandson of the dynasty's founder, King Taejo himself. He was known as a man of serious principle and loyalty.
and he's most famous for standing up against the overthrow of the young boy king Danjung, which was an incredibly dangerous thing to do at the time.
So you can guess that his family's journey was a lot bumpier. After some of his descendants were persecuted for standing up to the tyrant king Yonsan, the family had to scatter all over the country just to survive. But even after all of that chaos, a 15th-generation descendant named Yoon Lee eventually made his way to Kwangdeok, bringing that family line back and planting it in that very same region.
So there you have it. 4 princes, 4 totally different life stories. A quiet recluse, a dedicated official, a loyal brother to a king, and a principled resistor. And yet, somehow, all their family lines ended up in the same small region. It's this deep, complex history that makes what happened next to Kwangdeok-myeon even more heartbreaking.
At this point, you might be thinking, okay, that's some cool history. But why does tracking these old family trees matter so much right now? Well, the answer comes down to one single history-shattering event that tore the present away from the past: the Korean War.
Because of the war and the division of Korea, it became physically impossible for these descendants to ever go back to visit their ancestral homes or the graves of their families. That's why these meticulously kept records and oral histories are so absolutely vital. They're not just about genealogy anymore. They're a lifeline, a bridge to a past you literally cannot touch. They're the only proof of a home that now only exists in memory.
So here's the real takeaway. The information the descendants share is not just a bunch of names and dates. It's this profound act of remembering. Every single testimony makes sure that the history of Kwangdeok-myeon and all the families who called it home doesn't get wiped out by a line on a map. It's proof that a home can be kept alive, not by land, but in the unbreakable power of memory and story.